It's beer o'clock on Reload Craft Beer. Today we've got a beer from Evil Twin Brewing Company, and it's a bottle of their Christmas Eve at a New York City hotel room, coming in at 10% ABV. It's an Imperial Stout. There you go. I think that's the longest named beer we've ever reviewed on YouTube, and it certainly was a tongue twister. It took about 4 takes to get that right. There's the bottle cap. Let's get the beer out into a glass and see what we get. Oop. Nice bit of smoke on the opening. Really looking forward to this then. Imperial Stouts, one of my favourite styles. Listen, you can't hear much because it's gloopy. I'm going to get right up to the camera and right up to the microphone here. That's right up to the microphone. You probably can't hear too much, but I like to do that because sometimes you get that hissy, fizzy, carbonated sound to a beer. But you're not necessarily going to get that with a big, fat, chunky, stodgy, medium, full-bodied mouthfeel of an Imperial Stout that has its origins in Denmark. The guys started in Denmark. They've moved lock, stock and barrel to America now. But you can see that it's, I call this, and I've come up with this term and I hope it catches on one day, Scandinavian style Imperial Stout. It's big, thick, heavy, gloopy, lovely, thin, tan coloured head. Look at that. Look how thick that looks. It's like engine oil. Lovely and carbonated, but generally, brewers, I've drunk lots of Scandinavian beer from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and they've all been really, really big and thick and stodgy and just lovely. It's got a certain character about the beer. So, jet black, tan coloured head, small amounts of carbonation, no light bleeding through. Let's get the aroma. Oh, it just brings a smile to your face. It's just, oh, blimey. So it's a mixture of raisin and caramel. Sweet malt, bitter malt at the same time. The best way I can describe this beer, and again, it's very typical for me of an Imperial Stout. When I was young, I always used to go, there was a shop by me on the way to school. They used to sell, especially at Christmas time, the little alcoholic chocolate sweets. And it was always fun to buy them because for some reason or other, we were just able to buy these things. He was selling them to kids on their way to school. This news agent, this little shop. And you bite in, and of course it was a novelty. You bite into this kind of chocolate and you'd have a quick mouthful of alcohol. Whatever that was, whether it was brandy or whiskey or some kind of spirit. And then it would kind of melt back into the chocolate, and it would be the first thing, you know, as an 8-year-old, you're thinking, oh God, that alcohol's awful. But then the chocolate comes back and makes it acceptable, tolerable to eat these little kind of alcoholic, especially at Christmas time, these little alcoholic bottles that you used to get. It was in the shape of a bottle, this chocolate, and you had a little bit of alcohol in the middle of it. You probably know what I'm talking about, but anyway, the aroma of that it takes me back to 8 years old when I used to buy these sweets. Chocolates. Let's dive in. Cheers. Oh yeah. Wow. Oh, blimey, it's bitter. It's really bitter. and it's giving me a lovely warming alcohol sensation going down into the stomach. And yes, it's wow, it's bitter. And I've got to put this down, and I've got to say, Stone the Crows. Stone the Crows, what an awesome beer then. Ah, blimey. Rich, vinous, raisin, alcohol. It's quite raw. Even I think this beer, of course, it was brewed at Christmas last year. It's now September 2016, so this was probably brewed either at the end of 2014 for Christmas or the end of 2015 for last Christmas. But even now, it's quite hot. It's quite a hot beer. And what I mean by hot, it's an industry word that brewers use. It's quite alcoholic, but I think it's great. I love it. Again, it's that chocolate sweet that I go back to. You know it's alcoholic. It's just, of course, you get that alcohol from the 10% ABV of the beer. You get a lot of bitterness, and you just feel it as it's sliding down the throat into the stomach. It's just a real warming sensation, and blimey, it's good. It's really, really good. It's a medium mouthfeel. It's chocolatey, bitter chocolate, roasted, lots of roasted malt that gives a little bit of sweetness from there's a little bit of caramel and chocolate in there, but it's sweetness, then it's very bitter on the back end. It's bitter chocolate, bitter roasted malts, and then hops on top of that. And it just combines to give raisin, fig, plum, vinous qualities, and it's just a lovely, lovely Imperial Stout. And it's surprisingly carbonated. The carbonation tickles the back of the throat, inside of the mouth. It lifts the beer. I think the beer, if it was less carbonated, you'd feel more of the mouthfeel. There was a point earlier on in the review where I was about to say the beer was thin. It was a thin Imperial Stout. But I changed my mind. I realised that it was the carbonation that was lifting it so much that was making it seem thin. But it's not. It is definitely a medium. You can feel it wrapping the inside of the mouth, and especially down the back of the throat and inside it. You can feel it going down, and you only get that when it's a gloopy Imperial Stout, when it kind of slowly kind of sinks its way down into the pit of your stomach. You can track it down as it's going. But yeah, going back to it, the carbonation just lifts it enough to be able to release more of that flavour on the palate. There's some vanilla in there. There's maybe some cacao nibs. Lots of roasted malt. Maybe whiskey barrel aged. I'm not one to, I always say I'm not one to read the label. Sometimes I read the label, sometimes I don't bother. Is it barrel aged? Let's have a look. It doesn't say. It doesn't say whether it's a barrel aged Imperial Stout. Maybe not. But I certainly get that sense of alcohol. It is definitely still a hot beer. It's still very warm. I'm going to wrap this beer review up. I think you've heard enough. You kind of know where I'm going with this. Evil Twin Brewing, Christmas Eve in a New York City hotel room. And that is enough. The label is enough to give you... It's enough to... Do you know? Who on earth is at a hotel room on Christmas Eve? Okay, there must be people. There must be. But I've never spent Christmas Eve in a New York or any hotel room around the world. And it's imagination. that is one of the best named beers I've ever read or seen. Because it ticks your mind. You think of the snow of Christmas in New York. Probably don't snow anymore because of global warming. But you picture snow from the films at Christmas, and you think of New York, and then you think, who would be in a hotel room on Christmas Eve? And then it just gets your mind going. And I remember seeing this beer last year at Christmas, and it was one of them beers that I thought, bang, wow, I want to drink this beer. And I found it in Cardiff eventually, at the Gravity Station. So I picked this beer up, and I finally got it. And it was a pleasure, it was a real pleasure to review it. Let's give it a rating. Cheers. For me, this Imperial Stout, please comment if it's barrel aged, if it's whiskey barrel aged. It's got a slight whiskey feel to it. Maybe not, maybe, but yeah, I'd like to know. I haven't. There's no real information on the label as to how it was brewed, how long it was fermented, and then chucked in a barrel, if it was chucked in a barrel at all, or whether it's just a regular Imperial Stout at 10% ABV. But vanilla, chocolate, vinous qualities. It's medium body, pardon me. Nicely carbonated. It's a Stone the Crows 9 out of 10. It's a 9 out of 10 beer from Real Ale Craft Beer. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom and cheers.